Guys, welcome to Sunday Night Live. I'm your host, Jason, and with me, I've got some of the cream of the crop, some of the guys you know very well when you watch this show. The regulars, if you were. With me, I'm going to start with the Frito Bandito himself. This is a big week, a big weekend for the Frito family. It's the weekend where we made Britain our bitch. Frito, how you doing?
I'm doing beautiful. If you guys had to guess, what is the number one sales Frito-Lay chip this week?
I mean, is it just like plain Ruffles?
I'll say it's the Independence Day Frito chip.
The Frito corn chip?
Sure. Independence Day Frito corn chip.
What are you saying, Ruffles?
Oh, what's
Jason?
that?
Yeah, I
You
said
said Ruffles?
I said just plain Ruffles. Ruffles.
George, what about you?
I'm going with it's got to be a Dorito, right?
Nope, Lay's. Just plain Lay's.
I knew it was going to be a plain chip.
Yeah.
But I thought, look, Ruffles are dippable, man. Those Lay's chips aren't.
True, but you could get the wavy Lay's.
That's a good point.
I
Solid.
propose an Independence Day Lay's chip. Independence Day themed Lay's chip.
So you want
I
like little
propose that I
flags,
get some taste buds because the plain chips are the worst.
little flags on there, right, Joe?
Something like that.
Well, look, I've kind of already called his name a couple times, so I'm just going to introduce him next. We got Joe Clark down below me here. Joe, how you doing this evening?
Doing great, gentlemen. Happy Independence Day, pre-Independence Day coming up. Also, it's the 160th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg as well. So it might have actually started yesterday or was today, July 1st, July 2nd. Close enough, but we're in that range. But 160 years ago, I remember those days. It was bloody, it was horrible. But everything turned out well in the end.
Yeah, listen, the right side won. And then in this corner, at weighing in at what, like two, I'm not even gonna guess it, George, weighing in at higher than 2 is my buddy, my friend.
300, buddy, 300. So first off, nobody puts baby in the corner, so I don't know why I'm down here in the corner. Second,
That's a big ass
I want
baby.
to give a shout out real quick to Justin and Lori. They're going through
Thank you,
some
George.
bunch of personal issues right now. Normally Justin joins us on the Sunday Night Live as well, but him and his wife are going through some stuff right now. So if you're the type of person that does thoughts and prayers, just keep them in the back of your head. They could probably use some encouragement right now.
Absolutely. I was going to mention it, but I'm glad you did because, lucky enough to be good friends with Justin, met him through fantasy football. It's one of those, and it's something you'll see at the expo in August if you go. People you meet online, it's when you actually meet them in person. It's like a friend that you've been close with all the time, and that was kind of us last year. I'd only known Justin online, and when we hung out, it was like we were good friends that had hung out together, hundreds of times, which we do on here most Sunday nights, right? So when your family is going through something, and I consider you guys family, when your family's going through something, we're going through something too. So if Justin does see this, again, thoughts and prayers for him, and we just hope he gets through these times and comes out on the other side. So
Amen.
Love you, Justin. All right. So this week we are going to be talking about fantasy football players we are willing to reach around on. So guys in the first round that have ADP of second round and second round in the third round and so on and so forth. So we each came up with a list and we'll be going over those tonight. But first, we do want to talk about news. And before we get into news, I want to talk about everything going on for Toilets to Titles, whether it is our Frankenstein League, which is right around the corner. We're getting ready to do rock, paper, scissors to pick the draft. But we're getting ready to do that. We've got patreon.com/Toilets to Titles where you can get in. I think Coach said at the $1.50 level, if you get in, you can get a copy of the Frankenstein, one of the physical Frankenstein cards. We did have a tier where George would come sit on your he would be the trophy and come sit on your dresser and scare the shit out of you every night. There is that tier. I'm not sure what that costs, or Maybe
I'm cheap. It's like $20, dude. I'm so cheap.
well, cost of airfare not included. So
Yeah,
we've
sure.
got that. But on top of Patreon, on top of our website, toiletstitles.com, where you can get all kinds of articles and rankings, you also get to you can also like follow us Monday through Friday for shows and mock drafts. George is doing mock drafts Monday, Wednesday, Friday. A lot of Scott Fishbowl drafts because it's one of the hottest things in fantasy football right now, but other drafts as well. And then Tuesday night is our main show. Wednesday night, head to head. We've got Joe doing the Giants Corner on Wednesdays, right? We've got shows pretty much every day of the week. And again, this is just off season. Wait till the season starts, and we'll be able to take care of all of your football needs Monday through Sunday. Really, we've got a bunch of individual team shows now. Right before us was Dallas Cowboys with Coach, but we have a Jacksonville Jaguars Duvall show. We have the Rams. We have the Packers. Pretty much if you want a show at any given time, Toys Titles got one for you. So follow us and we'll help you get through your football season. All right. So for the news, again, it's kind of a slow week. But we did have some news. None of it was great. First thing I wanted to talk about was the Tennessee Titans running back Hassan Haskins was arrested and charged with aggravated assault after allegedly strangling a female victim for approximately 10 to 15 seconds. She was also arrested for snatching the chain off of his neck, had another assault charge against her. There was talk that there was a gun brandished in that situation. Never a good situation for anybody when something like this happens. Silver lining for fantasy football, it's one less person to take away carries from Derrick Henry, and opens up some carries for Tajay Spears, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm
Right.
just basing, like, it's awful. It's Sunday night. I'm thinking about work tomorrow, and Tajay Spears' name just popped in and out of my head. But it's I guess it's good for them, and a terrible situation for Haskins and the league. George, give me your first thoughts on the situation.
Well, so it's never good when anybody, male, female, doesn't matter. It's never good when anybody puts their hands on somebody else. This is definitely another black eye for the league. It's something. It just seems like every time something comes up with like some type of domestic violence, like it's a black eye for the league, and that dates all the way back to Ray Rice. Luckily, it's not a major player in the league, so it's not somebody who's going to get a whole lot of notoriety. He's second, third string running back, easy to get rid of, to just get him off the team. And then if it's found out to be true, it's kind of a murky situation right now. But I do expect the league to come down and suspend him eventually, especially if the fact that there was a weapon brandished, that's true. You can all but guarantee he'll be suspended for at least 6 or 7 games.
Anyone else? Well, I mean, not a lot to talk about in regards to this. Just it's kind of the only news out there, and it's not great. So, hopefully he gets punished for whatever his crime is, and he comes out a better person for it. And that's all you, Joe. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I'm obviously, so I'm not what I'm about to say. I'm not making light of the situation at all, but I don't necessarily see it as a black eye on the league. I mean, it's a league of well over 1,000 players, and coaches and everything, and you can't control what every idiot is going to do in his off time, and that's all I had to say about that. Like, there are situations where it is a black eye. Bad situations that wind up being, a black eye in the league. This isn't, for me, it's not one of them. He's an idiot. If this is true, he's an idiot, and it's on him. That's the only point I want to make. I feel like sometimes leagues, not just NFL or leagues in general, get kind of like, the black eye when they can't control what these people do in their own stupid actions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a black eye is more like the Ray Rice situation where you sweep it under the rug and try and make it. That's a black eye. This, yes. It's been a while since I read the statistic, but it's probably it's probably still holds true that the NFL has the same crime rate amongst its players as the general public has at large, right? So you think maybe these guys should be better than the public at large because, they're making X amount of dollars, the teams keep an eye on them, yada, yada, yada. But like in the end, these are all statistics bear out over any large organization. And, so this kind of stuff happens, the league and the teams out front of this. So getting to your point, not so much a black eye on the league other than it's a player from the league and it's in the news. So, from that standpoint, the league's not happy about it, but as long as they treat it properly.
Exactly. Exactly. How do they handle it? But let's see what happens to them. Just a friendly reminder, everyone, everyone's innocent until proven guilty because none of us are there. That's all I'd say. So I'm not taking sides in anything.
Yep. And so the next bit of news, and this isn't directly NFL related, but it does get to some of the people that talk about the NFL. On Friday, ESPN laid off a lot of its on-air talent. I particularly posted here about the people that are affected for the NFL. Draft analysts Todd McShay, Keyshawn Johnson, Steve Young, Matt Hasselbeck, and Tui Colbert, among others. It's always tough watching people lose their job, especially people like Susie Colbert, who's been doing it a long time, kind of a trailblazer for a female in the position. Steve Young, a Hall of Fame quarterback, being let go. Todd McShay, who hasn't watched the draft in the last several years with Todd McShay not on it. So it's hard to watch people get laid off. And then you turn around and you see somebody like, and look, I'm just going to say it out loud. Stephen A. Smith has a job. Booger McFarland still has a job. You go, okay, I guess. Any thoughts in particular on this? I'll save mine for the end, but Frito, go ahead.
So I've been hearing a lot about this and everything and stuff, and it's kind of like they're just clearing out, making cap. It's almost like NFL making cap room for the upcoming people that they got coming up. I know they're trying to swing a deal with Pat McAfee and stuff like that. They're going to have to pay him some serious money and stuff like that. Him and his whole crew and everything. So it's kind of like they're clearing out some cap and everything to make sure they have some money, which they should always have money. They're going to get money to get him on there, and he'll be a key focus for ESPN going forward.
George, Joe, anything?
No, I agree with what Rich said. It's a cap cutting move. Like if you look at ESPN's parent company, Disney, like they've lost something like $900 million on some of their movies that they've came out with the last couple of years. Like they're trying to recoup some of that money. If you notice, everybody they let go had been there for a long time, so they're on the upper of the pay scale as well. Yes, it absolutely sucks to see, some of the people who have been there for a very long time to lose their job. Todd McShay was a surprise. Susie Colbert, absolute shock. She is an absolute trailblazer. It sucks to see Steve Young go. Matt Hasselbeck has been there for a while. Keyshawn Johnson, he's been there for a while too. But like they're bringing in younger guys, and they're. Let's face it, who here still watches ESPN on a semi-regular basis? Does anybody? I don't think so.
This is getting to my point, and Joe, I'll let you go first if you want. But I kind of have a little diatribe about what they're doing and why I think they're doing it wrong. But I'll let you go first.
Oh, me? Yeah, I really didn't know the details. I was just on vacation the past week, and I saw what was going on. Some of the names that were dropped, that are being dropped, and also a lot of these people I did like. But like George just said, like I don't really watch ESPN directly anymore. If I see anything that's ESPN generated content, it's usually on clips on YouTube, that are like woven into other content creators' videos, or like clips, like a 2-minute clip, something like that. So, but I do like a lot of the people that were let go. Hopefully they replace them with some good people, I guess. But I was curious about McAfee, taking that job. If I'm McAfee, I assume he does very well with his, with his own show, and
he does very well.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna have to, I'm assuming he's gonna have to change. Or it's not like he curses all that much. he doesn't go crazy or anything. Just a little bit. It's not a big deal, but is the vibe of his show going to change when he's on ESPN? What's it going to be like? Because I like him the way he is.
And again, that gets this. So all of this gets to the points I was going to make. So when I was young, how did you check sports scores? It wasn't ESPN. It was newspaper the next day. You check this because I'm old, right? I'm an old guy. So when I was
Jason,
young,
we're all old on this panel. Okay.
So when I was young, you flipped it over to the sports page, and you checked the stats and you checked the standings, and you saw who won. ESPN came out, and all of a sudden it was much watched TV. But you had to wait for what you wanted to watch, and if you missed it in that hour, you got to wait till the next hour. It was on all the time, over and over and over again. Here's the thing. What TV did to the sports section, the internet is doing to Sports Network, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if I want to see NFL news, I go to Twitter. I go to ESPN.com. I go to whatever website I want to go to. Or I check out a podcast like this one. I check out other podcasts. I check out, stuff that focuses on what I want to listen to.
Exactly.
And so I don't have
focus.
It's content focus. And instead of watching ESPN, and what I think they're doing with Pat McAfee is all wrong. And the reason I think what they're doing with Pat, yes, they want to get a younger viewership, but the way to do that isn't to take somebody with younger viewers and put them on your medium, because young viewers won't follow him to that medium. What you're going to do is take guys like us that would have watched some of that medium on TV still, the guys that are set in their ways and still watching it, and you're alienating them. And now you're putting somebody like Pat McAfee on a medium where people might not follow. Like, if I'm on my way to work, I'm not watching Pat McAfee's show on ESPN, and I'm also not seeking it out. I'm just going to a place where I can put it on in my headphones, a show on in my headphones real fast instead. So I think they're going about what they're doing completely wrong, even if laying off some of those people were necessary. That's not a business decision. I'm not a business genius. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a social media genius. I'm just looking at this going like, you're going to alienate the people that still watch, and you're not bringing people along with you.
Yeah.
I was like to say, I miss the days when 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Those were the times that the most updated sports centers would drop. And man, that used to be must-see TV.
Yeah.
Top 10.
Absolute must-see TV.
Dude, do you remember watching, just waiting for the top 10 plays?
Yep. Absolutely.
So anyway, I'll stop on my diatribe. We're going to get into some fantasy football talk. Again, this was business hour with Jason, and now we're going to move on to what George talked about. It's our reach around episode where we're going to take a player one round ahead of his current ADP. We went by the Fantasy Pros half-point PPR single quarterback league rankings, so we all use the same rankings. It looks like 3 of us did rounds 1 through 10, and then Frito zigged when we all zagged. And he did some of those, but he did some later guys as well. So when Frito's pick is up in the rounds we discussed, we'll bring up Frito's, and then we'll bring up the ones in between and after and that kind of thing. So
so that was basically to the fact is you guys, I mean, if you really sit there and think about it, we all kind of think the same and everything. And it was like first to the table and stuff like that. Everybody else gets leftovers and stuff like that. So obviously I could have did the same thing and everything, but and I did to pick a couple of your guys because I totally hard agree with you guys, but I just went with some other one, just off the wall that me personally, when I'm drafting and stuff like that, I'm taking some shots on some of these players.
Hey, Rich, you should know what I did. Just copy Joe's list.
We all win.
He wins everything but superhero drafts, apparently.
Yep.
I don't win any drafts. It's all rigged.
All right, well, Joe, because you don't win any drafts, we're gonna go with your first round player first. This current player has a ADP of 23. It's Tony Pollard. Tell me why you believe Tony Pollard deserves to be in the first round.
First of all, I'm not going to give away the names of the picks that Jason and Frito and George provided, because those were names that I easily, the names that you're going to bring up later on, absolutely could be, in the first round. And just as of recently, for the past few years, they would have been like slam dunk first round picks for the most part. But I went with Tony Pollard because I think he's on the. I think he's going to be honestly worthy of that pick, where he's going to be. I love the position he's in. He has a few years in the league. He's already, he's already shown a lot. Like he's an explosive player. He is coming into, he was just tagged, so he's, basically working towards his second contract, which he's in a perfect position for, because for the past few years he was basically the RB2 behind Zeke, who basically had most of the carries, took a lot of the wear and tear. Now Pollard, who is shown to be, who's never been an RB1 yet, but has played really, really well, is in a perfect position to actually, cash in on a really big second contract, having fresh tires on him, basically. While Zeke has been, been taking, most of the hits for the past 3 years that Pollard's been in the league. Pollard plays, when he's had his, he had a lot of touches last year, played very, very well. I think played like an RB1, plays on a very talented team that's going to that's going to put up points, that's going to hold on to the ball a lot, plays on a team that's got a very good defense, that's going to get the ball back to the offense. Dallas for a very long time has had a top-notch offense with quarterbacks, whether it's Prescott, Romo, wide receivers, offensive lines, and they've always still gotten their running backs the ball, and they've always been big-time producers. I think Pollard is in a perfect position. He might be like my RB3 going into this draft.
So the one thing you didn't mention, which to me speaks the highest for him having a really great season, is the fact that Ronald Jones is his backup, right? So volume is king in fantasy football.
May as well not even have a backup.
Exactly right. Volume is king in fantasy football, and with the way they're currently situated, he's primed to get a ton of volume. So,
yep.
Definitely see him being worth a first round. Georgia, Rich and I have the same name in the first round, so I'm going to let you do yours next.
So I had King Henry. For some reason, there's this kind of groupthink in the fantasy football Twitter world that Henry has fallen off, but I don't see it. Last year he had 349 rushing attempts, 1,538 yards, 13 touchdowns, and he had 41 targets, 31 receptions, and nearly 400 receiving yards. The targets, receptions, and receiving yards were career high. Second in the NFL in total yards from scrimmage, only behind Josh Jacobs, who we don't expect to be able to repeat that this year, do we? Like this, I mean, outside of maybe Rich, does anybody expect Josh Jacobs to lead the league in total yards from scrimmage again this year? I certainly don't. He had the third most touchdowns in a season for his career. So, like, it's the third most touchdowns he scored in any season for him. And basically, he had the second most rushing in a season for his career. He was only 2 yards short of matching his second best. So, like, there's this notion that Henry's fallen off and he's not going to be very good this year and he's not going to be worth the first-round pick. But, like, they really didn't change much of their offense from what they had last year. They didn't bring in any running backs. They didn't bring in any wide receivers. They didn't bring in any tight ends. Like, what are we doing here? He's going to get another, 300-something carries this year. He's going to produce. He's going to be worthy of a first-round pick.
No, I agree. Look, ours is going to be a running back too, and I think some of these guys are falling out of the first round because wide receivers are going very heavy after last year. It's kind of a pendulum swing in the wrong direction. We get this every once in a while where, running backs have a bad year, so then all of a sudden wide receivers become more valuable, and then it swings back the other way. So I think that's what's happening, but especially with guys like Derrick Henry and the guy we're about to talk to. Rich, why don't you name our first round, yours and my first round reach around?
Yeah, so man, man proves it every year, and they just put someone on free agency to clear up more opportunities for him, and I'm talking about Nick Chubb. Me personally, I think Nick Chubb is going to be top 2 running back at in season. If he ain't 1, he's sitting there right at 2 and everything. And it's just the fact that Jason kind of mentioned it. Look, wide receivers are jumping up the board and stuff like that, and it's knocking these people out. Look, Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry, we could say for the last 3-4 years, have been first round draft picks, and all of a sudden they're dropping into the second round, and they're probably jumping in the top of the second round. But as far as Nick Chubb, he's going to go out. He's going to have so much opportunity. Look, Deshaun Watson's going to have another a good preseason under his belt and stuff like that. They brought in some good receivers with hopefully what's his name from the Jets steps in there. I think Amari Cooper is
Elijah Moore.
There you go, Elijah Moore and Amari Cooper. They're lining up to have a stellar season, and he's going to be the one that really benefits it from it and everything. With everybody that we're talking about that we've mentioned so far, is easily could jump back in, because to me, if I look at who was in the top 12 based off the ADP rankings, Diggs falls out for me. And all 3 of these guys could jump up over Diggs with everything going on with him.
Yeah, so I got Nick Chubb there. He had 300 plus carries last year when Kareem Hunt was there. Mm-hmm. Hunt is gone now. So, talk about adding carries. But on top of carries, there's also talk of him receiving more passes, and basically out of necessity. You don't have a guy in the backfield anymore that catches passes better than him. So, and then the other thing is the front half of his season was way better than the back half. Well, what happened? Deshaun Watson came in the back half, having not played for over a year and a half, coming off all the stuff. So, having a guy like Deshaun Watson come in and kind of ruin Nick Chubb's season because he was rusty just means like nobody expects Deshaun Watson to be as bad as he was in the back half of last season going forward. He was always, Deshaun Watson was a stellar quarterback before all the issues, before the holdout, everything like that. So if they go from being an awful offense to being an average offense, then you have Nick Chubb killing it in that back half, and he's again in the first round this year. Now he's gone up a bit, and by the time we get to like the actual, real redraft season, Nick Chubb may be inching in there. He's 16 now. He started in the back half of the second or sometimes in the third when this draft season started. So people are seeing it, and the longer they go without adding somebody, the higher up he's going to go. But for me, Nick Chubb is far and away a guy in the second round that I would like to take in the first round. Joe, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll take actually all 3 of the running backs that we've mentioned. I'll take all 3 of them over Eckler, who right now is RB2 at average draft position of 5.3.
That is spicy. That is very spicy. I will remind you guys that next week we're going to be doing the opposite, that we're going to be doing guys in the first round that we wouldn't take in the first round. So, we're the opposite of this. It's going to be part 2. Don't give away too much. Keep them wanting more, guys.
Keep them wanting more.
All right. So we are going to go on to the second round. And let's see, who did we start with this week? I started with Joe. So I'm going to go with George this go around. Give me somebody you're taking in the second round that has third round ADP.
All right. So the guy I'm taking right now, let me pull it up. His ADP is currently 25.7. So it's, front end of the third round. He's the RB10 off the board. It's Ramondre Stevenson. Last year, he had 210 rush attempts, 1,014 yards, 5 touchdowns, and then he just crushed it. 88 targets, 69 receptions, 421 yards. So he made a boatload of money for those that owned him in the passing game. He played in all 17 games, but he only started 7 games for New England. So you would expect those numbers to all go up a little bit this year with him starting all 17 games. He's the presumed starter for New England. He was 4th in running back receptions on the season, only behind Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, and everybody's favorite playoff Lenny. And he also finished the season with the 11th most rushing yards in the NFL. So you expect, him to be able to increase those numbers slightly just based upon the sheer fact that he's going to be starting more than 7 games this year. So you expect his touches to go up, which the production should go up as well. For he's being drafted right now at the RB10, like I said, at the towards the front end of the 3rd round. He's easily a guy I would definitely take in the 2nd round.
No worries about the way Bill Belichick uses his running backs, George?
I do. I'm not a huge believer that they're going to continue to use him in a 3-down role. I do like, I think it's Pierre Strong is one of the guys Nino has been talking about, and Nino's a big New England guy, so I lean on Nino for my New England Patriots information. But
Any worries on what recently came out about Patriots being favored to land Dalvin Cook and Hopkins?
No. I think if they get anything, I think they get Hopkins. I think Cook to Miami. I still believe that is where he's going to end up. I think the agent could be putting just little chirps about New England out there to A, drop interest more in Cook, and B, it's within the division of Miami. So maybe Miami will come in with, a few more dollars. But ultimately, even if they offer the exact same contract or even like a $500 to $1 million more, he's going to Miami because we don't have a state income tax. So he's going to save that money right there anyway. So I still think he's going to Miami. It's just a matter of when, not if.
All right. Well, I do want to do Rich next because he doesn't have a 3rd round guy on here. It's one of the ones that he passed on. So Rich, you're going to go next with your 2nd round pick.
Yeah. So my 2nd round, his current ADP is 30.5. He's in offense that was doing this at the end of the year and still is going to be doing this going into the season. So that means even more opportunity for him. And that's Travis Etienne. Look, I know they drafted, Tank Bigsby, but Etienne is going to get a majority of the touches. He's going to get the receptions out of the backfield. Another year in this system and everything. Everything's going in the right direction on doing what he did last year, but just having more and more opportunities every freaking time. I love Etienne in the 2nd round if you have the opportunity at the back end of the 2nd round.
So I really do like the idea of Etienne here, partially because, again, they did bring in a running back, but it's a rookie. What's his name?
Yeah, but he's a
Tank Bigsby.
Yeah, so
Bigsby.
It's Tank Bigsby, and you go, okay, Tank Bigsby in college was good, but he didn't project to be great in the NFL. So if that's my competition for starts and for snaps, like give me Travis Etienne, who we've seen break off large play after large play. I do like that. Joe, I know you've got a young guy in 2nd round. Why don't you give us your 2nd round guy who's got 3rd round ADP?
Absolutely.
Hey, Jason, real quick before he gets going, I just want to say one thing about Tank Bigsby. I apologize. His college production wasn't that great. I just got to throw that out there. Like, he's had one season of over 1,000 yards rushing. His 2022 season, he only had 970 rushing yards.
Hey guys, I think it's Snoop Connor though that they took. They didn't take. I don't think they took Tank Bigsby, and that's why.
What was the name?
They took Snoop Connor last year.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I wasn't even familiar with that name.
He's coming back. That's what it is.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, Joe. I was looking that up.
No, it's all good. I mean, no, that's totally good. So I was going to
get it right.
Yeah. Before I get into my pick, I wanted to agree with you all and Frito, especially on Etienne, because even if Bigsby, comes in and look, I think running back is probably the most plug and play position in the NFL from college to the NFL, but he's not going to be RB1 on the team. I mean, Etienne is going to be used so many different ways. You don't have to worry about just being. He's not just going to be getting handed the ball. They're going to use him all different types of ways. They have a creative head coach. He's going to be used. I have no problem taking Etienne round 2 at all. I think that's an awesome pick. But my guy that I have, he was ADP of 36. So he was back end of the very back end of the second round, and that is rookie Jahmyr Gibbs. And Detroit took him high in the first round for a reason, and they're going to use this dude. And we're just talking about offenses like with Jacksonville that were going up, as the season progressed. Detroit's offense last year was up from basically game 1, and they're going to get even better. And yes, they have receiving weapons, but they did not draft Gibbs to just be like a third down specialist or something like that. This guy's going to get the ball. This guy's going to get a chance to score touchdowns. That is a productive offense. And I know he's a rookie, but he's playing in a very good offense, and I don't see them taking a step back this year. So I'd be very cool. He's very high on my list.
They drafted him to be what Swift should have been, right? They wanted a guy,
which he will probably wind up being for Philadelphia, unfortunately for my team, the Giants.
Probably, Joe, probably. But you bring somebody like this in to fill a role that you thought you had with the last guy you drafted. Talented receiver out of the backfield, shifty guy, can be quick. So I love this pick because you saw how special Swift could be when he was on the field, when they were able to utilize him. And you get a guy, hopefully, that can stay healthy, that has that same skill set. So I love that pick. All right, so for mine in the second round, I've got Najee Harris. His current ADP is 30. So, about midway through the third round. Najee Harris, to me, is a guy that last year we saw he got hurt early, and it took him a few games when he came back to get healthy. And once he did, he kind of blew up, right? But on top of getting healthy, he's also getting a way better offensive line. They signed a couple of new guards. They got some free agents. They did some drafting. They got some offensive line talent to help him out. The thing about Najee is volume. The volume is there. When healthy, he can run over guys with a good offensive line. He'll be better. And the thing I talked about with Nick Chubb is an improved offense. With Deshaun Watson having some games under his belt, going from a bad offense to a good offense, will make the world of difference for guys like Nick Chubb, but also for Najee Harris. If Pickett can go from being an awful quarterback to being a mid-range quarterback, that's just going to be all that much better for Najee Harris, because on top of the volume, he's going to get opportunities for touchdowns. So I like Najee Harris, especially due to his volume, especially due to the fact that offense, even getting a little bit better, will make him a better player overall. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, just real quick. I love that pick too. Najee Harris, I think he's in line, as long as he's healthy, in line for a monster season. All the reasons you just stated. I think the rookie tackle they took was Broderick Jones, I believe, right? He's going to be very, very good. There's a transition. There's going to be a transition. I don't know if he's going to be great from day one, but this offensive line is going to be better. Someone else they added to. And last year, I believe they drafted Pat Freiermuth at tight end. The guy he's a mover. He moves linebackers, defensive linemen. They also got, my favorite player in this year's draft, and that was Darnell Washington. But the guy is another big tight end that can move guys. I think they plan on running this ball quite a bit. Not that they can't pass it, but I think they're going to run it quite a bit because they can run it quite a bit. And they're going to have the offensive line. I think you're going to see those two tight ends out there quite a bit in a jumbo package to run the ball behind with Najee Harris behind these guys. I think he's looking at a really big year as long as he stays healthy.
All right, we're going to move on to the third round. Two of us have the same player. I think it's Joe and I both have Aaron Jones with his current ADP of 46. I'm going to go ahead and talk about Aaron Jones a little bit. He had an up and down season, but he did finish with over 1,100 yards on the ground His touchdowns were down last year, but he still had 59 catches. But my biggest thing with Aaron Jones is Aaron Rodgers is no longer there, right? So last year, Aaron Jones finished in the top 10 with only 2 rushing touchdowns. So he was top 10 without needing touchdowns to sustain him. If he doesn't get touchdowns this year, it'll just be top 10 again from just like last year. But Jordan Love doesn't have that many weapons. They're going to have to run the ball more. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be there being able to huck it. They are going to probably pass it to him because what's a good young quarterback's best friend? Those shallow and intermediate routes that Jones can run very well. So I think Jones is a slam dunk here to be taken ahead of his ADP and to again be a top 10 guy when he's falling out of the top 10 running backs being taken. I'm gonna let Joe go next because Joe also picked Jones.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that, I agree with everything you said, Jason. The only thing I'll add is that listen, round 3, Aaron Jones, steal.
George, anything on Jones? Or are you good?
No, I do like Aaron Jones. He's both him and I'm hoping that AJ Dillon gets a bounce back and actually puts up the production. Maybe we were all a year early on him, but I just see them handing the ball off a lot and using Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon with Jordan Love back there.
Absolutely, and I'm going to roll that right into your pick here because this is a guy I know you've talked about a lot on a bunch of different shows in a bunch of different formats. So, George, who's your pick here?
So mine is TJ Hawkinson. I am slowly turning into that guy that likes to take tight ends early in drafts, so I don't have to play the guessing game later in drafts. His current ADP is 44. He's the tight end 3 overall off the board, which I find to be fair, as being the tight end 3 off the board. I'm going to give you some stats: 86 targets, 60 receptions, 519 yards, 3 touchdowns. Those are the stats from his 10 games with the Vikings. I didn't even include what he did with the Lions in those stats. Within those 10 games, he would still have been a tight end 1 last year. That's how dominant he was in 10 games with the Vikings last year. For the season, he had the second most receiving yards by a tight end in 2022. And he was 5th in total tight end touchdowns at the end of the year. He's going to be a guy that goes out. He's going to get easily 100 and I honestly think he'll probably end up somewhere around 120, 125 targets on the season. I think he ends up somewhere right around 80 receptions on the year. I think he flirts with 900 yards and 8 touchdowns. For the tight end position, it's a guy that I want in all my drafts. I absolutely want him. The way that he gets another year in that offensive system, he's not the focal point because they do have the best wide receiver in the NFL outside of what we got down in Miami and Justin Jefferson. And then they also drafted Jordan Addison, which should help take some pressure off him. So I can see Hawkinson getting a lot of these underneath routes and then the seam up the seam routes where he's a mismatch on all the linebackers. So he's a guy I absolutely love.
Couldn't agree more. And Frito, do you got any comments on either one of the guys that we talked about?
So just a general perspective. Look, guys, when we're talking about these players, obviously you would love to get these players at the ADP they're at because you're getting value if they perform for what we're talking about, reaching up and getting them everything and stuff like that. So obviously I would love to have these players at a later round, like what we're just, and get that value for what they're doing and everything. So this is more of, for me, like, look, these are people, if you're 100% confident, look, go get them. Don't wait for them to fall to you and everything and stuff, and take that opportunity of someone sniping you for the players if you feel 100% about the way these players are going to perform and everything. So always, when you feel confident about your players, look, go grab them. Don't wait for them.
Well, it's something George always says is go get your guy.
Yep.
You know, there's some of that, like, you know, in the first round, while I'd say I'd love to have Nick Chubb in the first round, if his ADP says that if I'm at 110, I'm going to take Tyreek Hill and then probably get Nick Chubb coming back, right? But Nick Chubb is a guy I'd be comfortable taking at 110. It just depends on where you are, and it's about playing the game of your draft. It's tougher up at the top than it is like towards the back where we get to some of these guys. But yeah, definitely, if you feel it, go get your guy, because often if you play timid and you play safe, that's when you lose. That's losing fantasy football. Go get your guy. And you know what? It's a lot more fun to lose with guys that you trust than it is to be average with guys because you were too timid. So go get your guys, have fun, and root for them, right? So, all right, in the next round, we are going to go with let's start with Joe, because I think this one's a little bit spicy. He's taking. Oh, I'll let you say who you're taking in the 4th round with average ADP of 50. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, so average ADP of 50. I went with, and this was, I went with wide receiver DJ Moore. And I'm not even the biggest DJ Moore fan, to be honest with you. And he's going to a team that is still, building in the Bears. But I believe in, I believe that Justin Fields is coming along very nicely. He is the wide receiver one on that team. And I do think he's going to play very well there. Like I said, I believe in Justin Fields. I think he's coming along very well. I think he had overall a very good first full season at the helm last year. And I like him in Chicago. And I've always, I think this is probably the best quarterback he's playing with in a long time, if not his career, as far as I can tell. So it's shaky, but there was no one else really at this point that really grabbed me like some of these other players did. So I thought DJ was pretty cool. Our wide receiver one for Justin Fields. And I do think they're building up Chicago nicely, don't get me wrong, but there's just so many what ifs.
All right. So I have been a DJ Moore guy for a long time. Man, going to Chicago, it's an upgrade over what the Panthers have. So hopefully he has a good season. But it's, a number one wide receiver for a quarterback that we all have on the upswing. It's not a bad position to take. I'm in. Go ahead, George.
I got a question for the panel, and This is gonna be a fun one.
Uh-oh.
Who had the better starting quarterbacks for them the first 6 years of their career? DJ Moore or Allen Robinson?
I'm gonna say Allen Robinson. I think I'll take Blake Bortles over the mess DJ Moore's had.
Yeah, I think I would too.
I mean, that's the best quarterback he's had. Like, I would absolutely take Blake Bortles over anything DJ Moore's had.
Yeah,
good question. I don't have an answer.
How many years in there was Cam Newton with DJ Moore?
I think it was his first 2 years in the league.
Yeah, which is like, you got bad.
I get it. Blake Bortles. Oh my goodness, we're talking about Blake Bortles.
You know who I can still throw up there too?
That's not a name I thought we would be talking about this on the show tonight.
Yeah.
There's another wide receiver one out there too. I think ADP was 70, if I recall. I just rechecked the list, and he's not playing with Tom Brady anymore. But it's Mike Evans, and I know Baker Mayfield, I believe, is the starting quarterback down there. Mike Evans, I still think going to have not a great year, maybe with Tom Brady, but I think he's still going to have a wide receiver one type year.
He'll have 1,000 yards because they'll get him his record.
Yeah.
They'll get him. He came out. He's like, how cool would it be to break Jerry Rice's consecutive 1,000-yard streak? They're going to do everything they can to get him that, which he has to do it, I think, 2 more seasons to tie and 1 more season or 3 more seasons to pull ahead.
Yeah.
So I looked it up. Cam Newton played only DJ Moore's rookie year.
Yeah.
And they played 14 games together. Now, a couple years later, Cam Newton came back. If you guys recall, he actually went back to Carolina, and DJ Moore was still there. But let's try not to remember that Cam Newton.
I gotcha.
I think Mike Evans is getting pretty disrespected as far as fantasy goes.
Agreed.
You know, but here's the thing about Mike Evans is it's boom or bust, right? The problem with Mike Evans last season is you got 2 reception games with 15 yards, and then you got 3 touchdown games with 140 something yards. I think it'll be a lot better this year as far as like average per game versus boom and bust. But you know, they've got a first-year offensive coordinator. They've got Baker Mayfield. A lot of reasons why Mike Evans is getting the disrespect he's getting. And I just hope all of that's wrong. And Dave Canales is actually a good offensive coordinator. So, Rich, why don't we go with your pick here, 4th round guy? I actually happen to really like who you've picked here.
Yeah. So, this receiver average ADP, current ADP is 61. I'm not going to spend too much time on him because I actually the person I got right below him, I would actually take him before. It's totally. I mean, he'd be a third round pick for me, but I'm going to hold off on him. Drake London is the receiver I'm talking about. Look, Kyle Pitts, you guys draft Bijan Robinson. Yeah, look, I know everybody's not high on Ritter and everything and stuff like that. Give him opportunity and stuff like that. Okay. Same coach, same system and stuff like that. Another year under the belt and stuff like that. Look, he is a big receiver and he's going to go get the ball. I love him because he's at the top of the 5th round, but man, I would jump up in the 4th round if the opportunity is there for me.
Well, and here's the thing. The offseason talk has been about Ritter and London's chemistry together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he played well last year when he was healthy. Ritter and him had some pretty good rapport. So if Ritter being the quarterback going forward is not a bad thing for Drake London. So the opportunity is there. The only thing that you may worry about, you know, we talk about opportunity being king. You know, they drafted Bijan for a reason. They still have Algier. Like you worry that team runs even when they're down 2 scores. So you worry about, you know, enough balls going around. But I do think having a dynamic player like Bijan opens up a lot of play action that gets guys like Pitts and Drake more open than they were last year. So I think overall it's, you know, having better talent on the offense is just going to be good for everybody around. So I love that pick too.
Yep.
George, I'm going to go ahead and let you go next.
So I went. So if you guys notice, most of mine are running backs. I'm a big running back guy, though. I went with Dalvin Cook as the one who I felt was worthy of being taken. At least, really, I'm kind of with Rich here. I think he should be more in the 3rd round than his average ADP right now in the 5th round. His average draft position is 58.3. He's the RB20 off the board according to Fantasy Pros half point PPR, which is absurd. People say, "Oh, he wasn't efficient. He didn't play very well last year." I don't know what they were looking at or what numbers they're looking at, but he had 264 attempts, 1,173 yards, 8 touchdowns, 56 targets, 39 receptions, 295 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was 10th overall in total yards from scrimmage. He had more total yards from scrimmage than Travis Etienne, Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard, and Najee Harris, all of who are being drafted ahead of him. He had 10 total touchdowns on the season, which tied with Saquon Barkley and Najee Harris. He had more touchdowns than Aaron Jones and Ramondre Stevenson. He's 4th in the NFL in touches inside the 5 with 15 touches. That is the money zone right there. And then I think the only reason he's this low is he's not on a team right now. And as soon as he gets on a team, that ADP is going to skyrocket. But even still, him being drafted right now where he is as the RB20 is disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, look, if he's drafted by the Patriots, I don't know that he goes up in ADP. But pretty much anywhere else that's been discussed, for sure. Because if he goes to Miami, he's the instant starter. If he goes to Buffalo, he's the instant starter. Yeah. I don't know why Cincinnati's not cutting, mixing, and pursuing Dalvin Cook. It blows my mind. We talked about, George and I talked about that offline. But Cincinnati could save $7 million by cutting Mixon, who's got some off the field issues, and then bring in a guy like Dalvin Cook, who's dynamic and would be great for that team. So, I don't know why they're not talking about that, a team that's like on the cusp every year. But really, the only thing that could hurt Dalvin's ADP once he signs a team, to me, is going to the Patriots. And it's not because I don't think the Patriots would know how to use him. It's just that then they've got Ramondre and Dalvin, and it's going to be back to you never know who you can start in what week.
Well, there could also be, and that's the key thing, though. You just answered the question. Like, listen, he sticks out like a sore thumb. Obviously, there's not in my book. There's no way in hell he's lasting in the 4th round. It just depends on what team he signs with. Who knows? Like, maybe even, and I don't think this is going to happen, but say, for example, he were to sign with a team like Dallas, who has an RB1. Pollard's going to be the RB1, but they promised Cook he's going to get a healthy amount of touches, but he still wouldn't be an RB1. But he'd play in a dynamic team that has a good chance to go to the Super Bowl. Maybe he wants that at this point. So I just need to see where he's going. But yeah, I agree. I mean, for me myself, I still have Dalvin Cook way high up on my fantasy list. Absolutely. I just need to see where he winds up.
Yeah. So I've got in my 4th round slot here, I've got Miles Sanders. Team downgrade for sure, right? And that's why he's being drafted where he's getting drafted. But again, he's being called a 3rd down back by his head coach already, and there's not a lot of talent behind him. So he's going to be in. You're getting a guy in the 5th round now, but I would take him in the 4th, who's for sure a third down back. They're also talking about him getting a lot of passes out of the backfield, much like his rookie year. Frank Reich's already telling him you're going to have to step up in the passing game like you did before. He's already done it in the league. He's shown last year he's got the talent, and we're at 56 minutes, so I'm going to start shortening up some of these. I can go on some long diatribes, so I'm going to shorten him up. But Miles Sanders is a guy I'd take in the 4th round who's currently going in the 5th. So we're going to go to the 5th round. A couple of us have this player, so I'm going to mention him first. It's Kyle Pitts. And sticking with keeping it short. Look, Kyle Pitts, the hype on him was out of this world when he first came into the league. And everybody forgets that rookie tight ends, he had a good rookie season for a tight end, but it was just okay. Hurt most of last year. Touchdowns have been lacking. Tight ends don't tend to get it for a couple of years. This guy's still an athletic freak, a guy who can't take off the field and can line up anywhere. And again, improving offense. So Kyle Pitts early in drafts where people were taking him, I was all out. But if you're telling me that he's got 6th round ADP and I can get him in the 5th, I'm back in. So Joe, I think you had Kyle Pitts next, or
yep.
So I'll anything.
Nothing to add. You said it all.
Okay.
I was never I didn't even have Kyle Pitts on my radar at all early in the last year's draft. Other people were treating him kind of like Travis Kelce. I'm like, this is like, it's too early. I'm like, I'm not going to go there with he had no quarterback last year. I'm like, I'm not going to go there with Kyle Pitts. But, at this point, ahead of we're looking at slim pickings of at really, really good wide receiver ones. I'm kind of rolling the dice with Kyle Pitts here on a nice bounce back here.
Absolutely. And you know what? Because Rich picked somebody from my favorite team, I'm going to let him go next in his 5th round.
Yeah, look, I apologize. I went off to another thing. So his average ADP is 61.5. Okay. I would actually draft him probably in the 4th, 3rd round. Because he is the starting running back for this team. They didn't do they lost Leonard Fournette. They didn't really do anything to show any threat to him. Rachaad White, I mean, dude's going to get targets out of the backfield. He's going to get the main share of the touches and stuff like that. Baker's there. You got a good receiving core. You got a good tight end that's going to take some of that pressure down the field and everything and stuff. Look, this guy is going to be a steal. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's sitting 5, 10, maybe flirting top 5, maybe.
I originally had him as my pick for this round, and I changed it to Pitts because I love the tight end value. But I agree with you. I think he's a legit RB1 or worth the gamble at this point of building off of last year. And he made a believer out of me last year. He made a believer.
2 games I know for sure that he was targeted as receptions 8 and 9. In one game, he was 9 for 9.
Here's the thing: his backup. We talked about Tony Pollard's backup. The backup for Rachaad White right now is Keyshawn Vaughn. That should tell you. I mean, look, they got Chase Edmonds, but there's not a lot of buzz for Chase Edmonds coming out of these early
Nor should there be.
No, right. So Keyshawn Vaughn is the main backup right now for Rachaad White.
Yeah.
That's kind of all you need to know. And George, I know you got another running back, so go ahead. And this is why I hate that George and I are drafting pretty close to each other in Scott Fishbowl. It's him and I think very much alike in our rankings. And I had to try and pick some of these, knowing that I would like them, but I can't give too much away because we're drafting in less than a week.
So the other thing I want to point out with Rachaad White is last year he had 58 targets and 50 receptions, and that was the second most receptions by a running back on his team. Leonard Fournette, who was the starter, actually had 83 targets and 73 receptions. So between the two running backs, they were targeted 141 times, and they had 123 receptions. So definitely high volume in the passing game, which you'd love to see from your running backs. But the running back I had in this round is James Conner. In 13 games last year, 183 rushing attempts, 782 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. And again, I'm a big targets guy, 58 targets, 46 receptions, 300 yards and touchdown. Again, all that 13 games. He was actually in the red zone. He had a 33% touchdown rate when he touched the ball in the red zone. They were in the red zone 23 times. He touched the ball 33% of the time he scored. And you're like, oh, that's because he's in close. No, that's not true. Inside the 10, he had a 44% touchdown rate. And then inside the 5, he actually had a 32% rate. So he was more effective inside the 20 and the 10 than when he was inside the 5, which is kind of backwards, but he's an explosive back when he's on the field. And then you look at the depth chart, there's nobody there. There's Keontae Ingram, Corey Clement, and last year's fantasy darling for about a week and a half, Tyson Williams. Outside of that, there's no depth at all at running back. And with either Clayton Tune or Colt McCoy projected to be the starter for the first half of the season, man, they're going to be running the ball. They're not going to be passing that much. It's going to be all James Conner.
Well, so George jumped the gun a little bit because he forgot Cam Akers was his this round, but that's fine.
Did I skip around?
You skipped Cam Akers, which is fine. So we'll go ahead and go to round 6 now. But just so you know, Cam Akers is George's 5th round guy for all the volume reasons we've talked about before. And then again another running back in the 6th round. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew you had a 5th round guy, and it was Cam Akers.
Yeah, my bad. My 5th round guy, yeah, Cam Akers.
You look excited about Connor, man. Come on.
He's so excited about Connor. We had to skip.
I am excited about. Listen, I get excited about running backs in general.
I know.
I can never be a zero. I could never be a zero tight end guy. It's not in my DNA. Or a zero running back guy.
I had to force myself to take wide receivers because I kept taking running backs, and I went into this thinking I was going to take a lot of wide receivers because wide receivers went early, so you'd have to jump up. And then I just kept looking at the list going, no, running back.
Same here. And I actually, you know what, Frito changed my mind. I'm gonna stick with my pick at Kyle Pitts. I still love it. And I'll say this: Kyle Pitts or Rachaad White, either or, I'd be super happy. I would take him at this round.
Well, here's the thing: if you don't take Kyle Pitts in the 5th, you've got a guy in the 6th that you can take. So go ahead and go with your 6th round pick.
Okay, yeah, Darren Waller. I love. God willing, he stays healthy. I think he's going to be a big-time producer for the Giants. This is a team. It's my team. I love this team. But we're still without a proven wide receiver 1. Darren Waller is that wide receiver 1 for this team. They're going to be passing a hell of a lot more. You need points at a tight end position. I think this is a good round to take Darren Waller. And especially when you're looking at like the wide receivers that are left, you're looking at like basically wide receiver twos and some good quality out there. But like I said, if he's healthy, he's going to be treated like a wide receiver one on this team, and I do think the production will be there.
So I do like the pick because, and again, especially if you're hunting for tight ends, it wasn't long ago that Darren Waller had like his breakout seasons, and I do think he has that opportunity in New York because there aren't that many wide receiver targets there. I think he has that opportunity again in New York, so that's a solid pick. I am going wide receiver this round. It's a guy who last year had when he got drafted, it was like all the offseason stuff was about his asthma and not coming into camp in shape, and maybe he didn't get the offense, and he was replacing AJ Brown, and last year's offseason is a complete 180 from what we're hearing this offseason from a guy who's coming back into camp in shape, looks pretty good from what the coaches are saying, and that's Treylon Burks. Now, the other thing we talked about when we talked about George talked about it with Derrick Henry, they didn't bring in guys like this is his wide receiver one. Now they're flirting with DeAndre Hopkins, and honestly, if they brought Hopkins in, I think that'd only be good for Burks to have somebody on the other side that would take some coverage. I think that could help. But being the number one guy in Tennessee, he's gonna get a lot of targets. And again, all the news coming out of camp early this year is completely the opposite of what was coming out of camp last year. He was one of the more talented guys coming out into the draft last year, and he's dropping down because again, it is Tennessee where we think maybe they're not going to be that great, but opportunity is king. In the 6th round, 7th round, where his ADP is in the 6th round, you're getting a number one target for his team from a guy who seems to be dynamic. All right. We're going to go on to the 7th round, and let's see, who do I want to start with? Well, look, George and Joe both have the same guy. I'll let you rock, paper, scissors for who's going to talk about him first. I'm just kidding. We'll go ahead and
George.
go with...
I talk too much anyway.
All right, go ahead, George.
I don't. Yeah. So Jordan Addison is the guy for me and Joe. He was the 23rd pick in the draft this year. He's replacing Adam Thielen. If you look it up, Minnesota has the 8th most vacated wide receiver targets coming into 2023, which is pretty significant. Adam Thielen had 107 targets, 70 receptions, 716 yards, 6 touchdowns. Addison can easily absorb that amount of volume this year, coming in as a rookie. And don't forget, he's got Justin Jefferson and he's got TJ Hawkinson to help teach him and to also help take the pressure off him, just like he's going to help take the pressure off them. Addison's is a great receiver, and I think of all the rookie receivers, I think he has the best opportunity to lead all rookie receivers in receptions, yards, and touchdowns this year.
Yep, I agree with everything George just said. I think Jordan Addison is actually my favorite wide receiver out of this draft, between him and JSN. And I'm going Addison just a little more, but I love the situation that he's in even more because it's basically him and Justin Jefferson and Hawkinson. If you look at Seattle, where JSN went to, he's got Metcalf and Lockett. I like Dalvin Cook is no longer there. They're going with Alexander Madison as the running back. I think they're going to be throwing the ball even more now. And I love this situation. He's got a good, accurate passing quarterback. And I think this guy for a rookie wide receiver is going to be as plug and play as they come, especially since he's going to be plug and play wide receiver too. I love the situation he's in.
And I do apologize. Rich also had Addison as his guy too, so it's 3 out of the 4 of us have Addison here. So thumbs up from Rich. All right, my guy this round is Jahan Dotson. Just quickly, he's slated to be the 2nd target in Washington, but he played like a first target last year when he was on the field. 7 touchdowns in 10 games, came out like fire. He just he got hurt, but when he was on the field, he produced. So that's a guy I'm reaching around on this late in the draft. So Jahan Dotson for me as the sole guy here. In the 8th round, I'm going to go ahead and go with my guy here, which is Elijah Moore. Switching over to Cleveland, getting away from the New York Jets is probably all you need to say about the ability for Elijah Moore. The one thing I do want to mention about Elijah Moore is he only got a 14% target rate when he was allowed to be on the field. The problem with that for me was it didn't actually match his ability to create separation. He was 12th best out of all wide receivers with target separation. He had 2.14 yards. This is a guy who got open and just couldn't get the ball in New York and couldn't get playing time in New York. He is a good talent. So on the Reach Around show, I have to talk about targets of Deshaun Watson at least twice. So Elijah Moore is my guy. George, why don't you talk about who you've got coming up in the 8th round?
So the 8th round is a guy I was pretty high on last year, believe it or not. That's Geno Smith. Absolutely loved what he was able to do last year for the Seahawks. 572 passing attempts, 399 completions. He had a completion percentage of 69.8%. He passed for 4,282 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. He had the 8th most passing yards in the NFL, ahead of Aaron Rodgers and Trevor Lawrence. 4th most passing touchdowns in the NFL in 2022. Highest completion percentage of all starting quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And then what did they do this offseason in the draft? They went out and added even more weapons to this offense with Zach Charbonnet, JSN, who Joe touched on earlier. They've done everything they can to make Geno Smith a success. And I think he's going to come out, and I think he's going to have another phenomenal year for the Seattle Seahawks.
Look, I think Geno Smith was the surprise of last year. For late round quarterback guys, if you're not reaching up to grab, the difference makers like Allen and Hurts and those guys, Geno Smith is as solid as it gets. Just kind of a steady quarterback presence. While you take your studs in the 2nd and 3rd round as running backs and wide receivers, you need somebody steady every week. And that's for sure Geno Smith. Going this late, that's a great pick. Joe, you had the same as George, you had Geno Smith, right? So I'm going to let you do your 9th round guy because the 8th round was the same. You also have a quarterback in the 9th round. So why don't you tell us who that is?
Yeah, that is going with Aaron Rodgers, who I think is going to have a big time bounce back year with the Jets. I think he's got good wide receiving core over in New York. It's a team that's going to want to throw the ball now that they have a legitimate quarterback. They're going to do well in the running game. They've got Breece Hall coming back, and if he's not ready to go week 1, and even if he's not the same player necessarily this year, because it takes a full year on the field to come back from your ACL tear normally. I love a guy they drafted earlier this year in Israel Abanikanda. He was one of my favorite running backs out of this draft, out of Pitt. So they're going to have weapons. I think their offensive line is improved. And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to go off this year. So that's why, his ADP was 113. So I'm taking him in one round earlier, 9th round, and I'm calling it a steal.
Listen, he's got Garrett Wilson. As long as he doesn't hit that quarterback age cliff, right? Mm-hmm. He's a guy who should be in for a big year, especially with how much they're paying him to come in and be the savior. So I'm all aboard, especially being a late round quarterback guy. I'm all aboard the Aaron Rodgers train.
At this point,
I mean, 10th round. Look, it's funny because a couple of years ago, everybody was off the Aaron Rodgers train, and he was the NFL MVP. And then last year, everybody was back on the Aaron Rodgers train, and his season was not as great. So maybe it's an every other year with Aaron Rodgers kind of thing. So maybe this is his year. George, who do you got in the 9th?
Well, why don't we let Rich go? Rich hasn't gotten here.
So I don't think Rich has got a 9th. He picked later, guys. So we're gonna let him talk after the 10th round, basically.
Okay. All right. So my 9th round guy was Khalil Herbert. And listen, I get, they drafted Roshan Johnson, right? He was the backup to what's his name, Bijan Robinson in Texas, and there's no shame in being the backup to Bijan Robinson. He's a talented running back, but I don't want to overlook what Khalil Herbert did last year. He started 13 games. Or no, he started one game. I'm sorry. He only started one game last year. 129 total rushing attempts, though. 731 rushing yards. Again, started one game. 4 touchdowns. He averaged 5.7 yards every time he touched the ball in the backfield. That is astronomical. It's one of the league leaders for anybody who had over 100 rushing attempts. He wasn't heavily involved in the passing game. 12 targets, 9 receptions. He did have 1 touchdown. Let's not forget that, he is the incumbent. He's been there for 3 years. I'm not completely sold they're going to just hand that starting duty over to a rookie. He has been able to build chemistry with Justin Fields. I think this is going to be a split backfield. I think it's going to be a lot more of a running back by committee with Johnson and Khalil Herbert. But I think Khalil Herbert's going to get the bulk of the touches there, and I that's something I'm looking for, is the opportunity.
Absolutely. Khalil Herbert, good running back when he gets the opportunity, and with David Montgomery not there, has good opportunity to get more opportunity. How many times can I fit that one word in there?
You have the opportunity to do it over and over
as
again.
much as I want, right? Because I'm the host. But my guy in this round is Rashad Penny. Now, he's one of the very few, he's the odds-on favorite to be the starter for a Super Bowl contending offensive firehouse. I don't know what I'm saying. He's going to be a starter for an offensive juggernaut.
Powerhouse.
I think he starts over DeAndre Swift.
I do think he starts over DeAndre Swift.
Wow.
Because I think he is, if he can be healthy, I think he's more of a first and second down back than Swift is.
There's talk that he might not even make the squad.
Swift to be the backup.
You think Rashad Penny won't make the squad? Or
there's talk that he might not even make the squad.
I don't know, man. When he's on the field, he's averaging 6 yards a carry. The guy's a stud when he's healthy. If he's not healthy, that it is what it is. I think he's a better running back, but because what's the knock on DeAndre Swift? He can't stay healthy. You got 2 guys there that can't stay healthy. There's not a lot of competition there. I think when they're both healthy, Rashad Penny is head and shoulders the better running back, and I think he's proven it in his time in Seattle. So, again, it's we're this deep into the draft. You're taking risks and high upside. Again, he's also going how much later than DeAndre Swift is average ADP?
I'll look up DeAndre Swift while you keep talking.
Yeah, I heard there was a beat writer. I want to say it was about 2 weeks ago on one of the shows I was listening to, and this was coming from a beat writer and stuff like that. That there's talks that he might not make it, but like I said, when you got 2 players like that have the injury past that they have and everything. They better be on the safe side than keeping both of them. So
go ahead. DeAndre Swift, his ADP right now is 64th overall, and Rashard Penny's is 115 overall.
Yeah. Give me Rashard Penny at 115 over DeAndre Swift at 64 all day on Sunday and twice on Sunday.
Oh, I don't hate taking Rashard Penny. I like the selection this late. He is going to be a valuable, if he stays on the team, he's going to be a valuable asset because of the Swift's history. I disagree with the notion that Rashard Penny is going to start over DeAndre Swift. That's where I disagree with you.
And the other thing is, both of them combined, I think, are making less than $3 million. So the team,
I know
the team,
unbelievable,
getting away with murder at the running back position. The Eagles this year. All right,
and here's the other thing DeAndre Swift's got going for him. He went to Georgia, and we already know how the Eagles feel about Georgia players.
Actually, that's a totally valid point.
It is. It really is. All right. So 10th round, I'm going to let Rich talk first. especially because he has some feelings about this next player. Go ahead.
No, I'm actually. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and skip it. I'm not even going to talk about him and stuff like that. I'm going to let you guys talk because I'd rather talk about the other two players. And I mean, I could go ahead and just jump into him. Look, we're all going to agree on a lot of things and everything, but when you're getting to this point, to the end of the draft and stuff like that, look, these are the opportunities to take a swing at the fence and everything for some players that might not get drafted and stuff like that, and you'll be able to pick up from free agency. But if you feel comfortable with them and stuff like that, why not take a shot with them on the last rounds, depending on how your draft is going and everything. And for me, the two that I'm looking at is, look, John Mechie with Houston. His ADP is 212.5. Yes, injury out last year and everything and stuff like that. But he has the opportunity to come in. Look, another receiver that comes from Alabama. What do? All they do is produce and everything. We got to see what he's able to do and stuff like that. Look, this is going to be a young team. They're going to give him the opportunity. I mean, what other receivers that they have besides Brandon Cooks is there now too, correct?
No, he's on Dallas.
Brandon Cooks is
Dallas.
Yeah.
So look, he's going to have the opportunity to come in and stuff like that. So take a shot with them. Don't let him sit there in free agency and have someone come up and steal everything. The last person I'm going to talk about is Zamir White, running back for the Raiders. Look, he's the backup. I get it. Josh Jacobs is a stud there and everything. His ADP is 248. Okay. There's still talks that he might not even be there for the beginning of the season and everything. Take that shot with him in the last round and stuff like that. And don't let it give an opportunity for someone to come in and steal him.
Well, worse for a holdout for like Josh Jacobs, holding out is one thing, but not getting into minicamp, not being there for the OTAs, not being there for the preseason. Oftentimes when those guys, they're talking about, oh, he might not be there for week 1. Maybe he comes back week 2. But oftentimes when those guys come back week 2, what happens? They get hurt because they didn't have all that off-season work. They didn't have all the preseason work. So, picking up a guy like Zamir White super late as the backup to a guy who's possibly holding out, and not only a guy who's holding out, but the number 1 running back last year who's holding out. Taking his backup is a smart play, maybe last pick of your draft. I did just like scroll down because Rich kind of made a challenge of like picking somebody later that you need to get at the end of your draft to maybe take a flyer on. So I've got one of those for after our 10th round picks, but I'm going to let George do his 10th round pick first.
So my 10th round pick would be Adam Thielen. Yeah, I mean, listen, we're talking the 10th round, right? So this is a guy that you probably, want to draft, put him on the bench. He's a good bye week fill-in, good flex if you need a flex. Last year, I mean, he had the 3rd most targets of his career. I get that he's with a new team, but that's something that I actually kind of like about it. If you look at the Carolina depth chart for their wide receivers, it's like Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Terrence Marshall, Laviska Shenault. Like Adam Thielen is clearly, even at the age of 30, he'll be 33 this year. Even at the age of 33, he's still the most talented wide receiver on that team. You got a nice young quarterback in Bryce Young. I do believe he'll lean on the veteran Adam Thielen, who's been around the league for a while. Somebody there has to catch passes from Bryce Young, right? Like, I know we want to poop on that receiving core, but they're in a very weak division. No offense, Jason, but it's a weak division right now. And somebody there is going to have to catch passes from Bryce Young. Why not Adam Thielen out of the slot?
I like it. Joe, go ahead with your 10th round guy.
Okay, and real quick, I just want to say hats off to Quito on John Mechie. I always forget about John Mechie, and I love John Mechie. I love that pick, Quito. Really, really do. Okay, so my pick here, 10th round. I'm actually gonna, you know what? The guy I had penciled in, and I had an honorable mention was Kyler Murray, round 10. I think I'm actually going to switch him to my pick for round 10. I think he's going to have a bounce back year. For like 2 years in a row, the guy was a very good fantasy performer. I'm chalking. I know he doesn't have his weapons, but I think he's going to have a bounce back year. And for round 10 quarterback, I'd go with Kyler Murray. However, the guy I actually wrote in here as my pick, and I still like him a lot, is Greg Dulcich, tight end, Denver. I know Russ Wilson did not have a good year last year, but I love that Sean Payton is there. Sean Payton likes to use tight ends. I believe in Dulcich. I loved when the guy was drafted last year, and I think he's going to have 10th round, you're looking for points at a tight end. I like Dulcich in that round.
So, question real quick: is Dulcich going to come in and play some quarterback play?
No, listen, it's Russell Wilson, but I'm counting on Russ Wilson having somewhat of a bounce back year. This isn't going to be 2016 Russ Wilson. I think with Sean Payton at the helm, he's going to have somewhat of a bounce back year, in good enough where I am not high on Denver's wide receivers. I think Dulcich is going to be a reliable weapon for them.
Well, look, if Russell Wilson doesn't come in and produce, then a quarterback Frito knows real well might be able to do it with Jared Stidham. So maybe Dulcich gets it with Stidham. But the guy I have in the 10th round is Jacoby Myers playing for Rich's Raiders. Listen, playing opposite of Devontae Adams can only be good for a guy like Jacoby Myers who has shown talent year over year, but playing with a mediocre Mac Jones. Last year playing with a defensive-minded guy as his offensive coordinator, it can only go up. I think he's talented. You worry this year because is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be the quarterback? What are they doing at quarterback if not? So, maybe that's an issue, but I think Jacoby Myers is a talent, and I think he's deserving in the 10th round. So that's where I have him. Rich, any comments on Jacoby?
Yeah, look, I love him and stuff like that. Look, he's coming back to McDaniels and stuff like that. I think McDaniels is gonna want to get him involved and stuff like that. But the people that nobody's talking about and stuff because of this season is Renfro. I think Renfro has a bounce back season and everything, and I see them just evened out and stuff like that. Renfro is a special player when if healthy. I like him a lot more better as far as and he's a perfect example of someone, if you feel comfortable with him, where his ADP is right now and stuff like that, going up and getting him if you're comfortable with him.
All right, and then I said I found because Rich laid down the gauntlet, picked some guys really late ADP, a guy that's been talked about a lot lately, so his ADP is probably going to rise. Someone people are forgetting about, but it's the same Denver Broncos, the same worry about Russell Wilson. But Tim Patrick right now is average draft position in half point PPR is 237, and he's being talked about by some coaches there as the best wide receiver in the building. You saw bits and pieces of that 2 years ago, and he signed a good contract last year. They really believe in him. So if he comes back from injury, a guy who's a last pick like Tim Patrick could end up as fire on your bench, a guy you can plug in on bye weeks, that kind of thing. I like Tim Patrick as a plug-in.
He's a guy I actually traded for in the Dynasty League within the last day or two was Tim Patrick. And yeah, that's a great pick. I was wondering if you were going to go deeper than I did, Jason. You did. Mine was somebody that was mentioned, I believe it was mentioned earlier by Joe, because Joe always knows, folks. Michael Carter is my deep late round, want to get at the end of the draft. Running back 65, average ADP right now 222. Listen, like Breece Hall is coming back from an ACL. Yes, I totally get that. But unless he's in the machine like Adrian Peterson is, he might not come back and just bounce back and be the Breece Hall that we seen last year. There's a good chance he's going to struggle. He's going to have to work through some things, I believe. There's absolutely nothing wrong with snagging Michael Carter as your last draft pick in the round and taking a flyer, because he could ultimately end up being the starter for the Jets for a couple of games this year. So he's somebody I just like to stash on the back of the bench.
Yeah, actually, the other Jets running back I mentioned was Israel Abanikanda. Okay. That's who we're thinking Jets running back. But yeah, Carter. Yep.
You look, Carter in limited duty a couple of years ago. He played very well before they drafted Breece Hall. The only thing we talked about with Michael Carter is that where they drafted him in the NFL, they didn't put a lot of money behind him. They didn't put a lot of capital behind him. But everybody, when he was drafted, said Michael Carter could absolutely smash behind that offensive line and on that team.
Yep.
And so if he gets the opportunity, he's absolutely of value with the last pick you make in this draft, because you know, at that point you're just taking flyers on guys, and why not take a flyer on a guy who could be a starter? You know, Abanikanda was talented, one of your favorite running backs, I believe, Joe, coming out of college. But again, who knows what that translates to the NFL? Who knows if it translates right away or if it takes some time? And, you know, if it takes some time, then you've got a guy like Michael Carter who can do it early. So even if you only get a handful of games out of Michael Carter, that's a handful of games you're getting out of a guy you took absolutely dead last. It's kind of like San Francisco did with Brock Purdy, right? Striking gold. So if you can strike gold for fantasy like San Francisco seems to do with quarterbacks and running backs and whatever else they do, then you're doing all right. All right, guys. That is wrapping up Sunday Night Live.
Wait, real quick.
Okay, Joe.
Going back to round 7 real quick. I have to, because I love this player. I have one with Jordan Addison. I'm sticking with that round 7. But I also have to give a shout out to Jason with the Jahan Dotson, because I love Jahan Dotson. That was your 7th round reach. I think he is wide receiver 1 in Washington, and the guy catches everything. I love him. If he's healthy, I think he is wide receiver 1 on Washington. I love that guy. I also have to just mention Kadarius Toney. He was an honorable mention of mine in the 7th round. Scary. The guy can't stay healthy, but I'm just saying, if he stays healthy, he's on the field for Kansas City with Mahomes in the 7th round. He's wide receiver 1. He's going to be used like, you know, Deebo Samuel, and if he can stay healthy, he'll be all over the place and he'll have a monster year. He'd be a steal in the 7th round. Just something to think about, but he's scary.
All right. Well, so I do want to mention that I had a great night with these guys. We're going into the July 4th weekend. Always remember to not be Jason Pierre-Paul. If you're going to play with fireworks, do so responsibly and soberly, so you walk away with all the digits and all the hands. And we've got big things coming from Toilets to Titles throughout the season. We've got a sponsorship we're going to have to start talking about on next week's show. It's big, but for me, for Frito, for Joe, for George, I want to thank you guys for watching. Check out toiletstitles.com, YouTube, Toilets Titles, like and subscribe. Check out all our shows Monday through Sunday, all of our mock drafts, all of our articles, patreon.com/toiletstitles. For all of us, thank you for watching tonight or whenever you get to check it out. Have a good night and good luck this week.
Happy 4th of July.